Hey guys, it's G. Welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to be showing you different ways to sneak vegetables into your diet. So let's get cooking. So to start off this veggie packed meal, I am making an arugula pesto. So I'm using about 3/4 of a bag of arugula and I'm just putting it into my food processor. I ended up blending this and then adding the rest of the bag after it got wilted down. But if you have a bigger food processor or you just don't want to use as much arugula, then you could just fill it as much as you would like. And then I'm going to take some olive oil. And I'm just pouring that on right on top of the arugula. For this process, I also added a clove of garlic. But I also eyeballed both of those the whole time. I just tasted it as I went and added more or less of what I wanted. And so I blended this up. And then after I blended it for a little, I added some cheese. You want to make sure it's grated finely so that way it blends perfectly together with your arugula pesto. And again, I also eyeballed this. It looks like I added a lot, but I had a lot of arugula in there, so I wanted to make sure that it balanced out with the bitter taste of the arugula. And I also added some salt. I only had Himalayan pink salt, but you can use regular salt if you have it. And then I also added a little bit of black pepper, but I didn't add too much black pepper because, again, arugula is a little bit bitter, so I didn't need that kind of spice in there too much. And after it was blended, I got it to the consistency that I wanted. And then I just went ahead and put it into a container so that I could set it aside. The amount of pesto that I made is definitely not as much as you will need for this recipe, but I did end up using it with pasta later this week. This pesto would also be good if you add a little bit of basil to up the flavor game. Now to make some veggie nuggets, I am adding a clove of garlic and some chopped up onion. I just roughly chopped it. And then some drained and rinsed chickpeas. These were just canned. And then I'm adding 1 egg. And some parsley. You could use dried parsley if you don't have fresh parsley, but I just had some fresh, so that's what I decided to use. And the key ingredient here is sun-dried tomatoes. So I did end up adding a lot more throughout the process, and in the end I was very glad that I added more sun-dried tomatoes because the flavor just brought everything together and it wasn't overpowering at all in the end product. So it's okay to be liberal on them. And then also you can be very liberal on your spinach because this is your green, the big part of the vegetable in this veggie nugget. So the spinach will get all chopped up and cooked down. So I added some and then you can add more later after you have blended everything. But now I'm just squeezing half of a lemon and I'm putting it through my hand in case there are any seeds. That way they fall into my hand and not into the food processor. So after that, I just went ahead and blended everything together. I didn't blend it for too long. I just wanted the consistency to be a little bit chunky at first. Then I'm going to add some flax meal. I just eyeballed this as well. I didn't use this as my main bindant. Some salt and some pepper too I also added, but I wanted the flax meal in there for some extra health benefits. And so I just blended all of this again. I just want to make sure everything gets incorporated very well, so that way the flavors come together and things like the flaxseed doesn't stand out over the spinach and the garlic and lemon juice. And after that, I added some almond flour. Almond flour is really going to be the big bindant of all of this. It's going to make them into the nuggets that they become. I also eyeballed this throughout the process and added more or less as I went. I've made things similar to this, but I hadn't made this specific recipe before. So when I went to go put this onto my sill pad, you could also use parchment paper or anything that's lined with cooking spray. But I put it onto the sill pad, and I wanted to make kind of like chicken tender shapes, but instead I just decided to spread it all out into a big rectangle and then slice it up. And I ended up making them into like little mini rectangle, like nugget sized bites. These were really dense, so I was glad that I did break them up a little bit more because they were super filling and I really only could eat about 1 or 2 per serving. So you can see here I'm just slicing them into rectangles and moving them over. This is just the process that I did. You can honestly use this batter for anything you wanted. You could make them into veggie burgers or roll them into little meatballs. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to try and experiment with a different type of shape than a traditional veggie burger. Now here I'm adding some more almond flour on top. At the time, I thought this would help them kind of become browned more or have more of a crust to them, because I didn't want to dip them and coat them in a breadcrumb or anything like that. But to be honest, I don't think the little bit of almond flour that I added really did anything. I didn't even end up adding it to the other side. But as you can see, this is what they ended up looking like. And after that, I put them in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes. And in the meantime, I boiled a pot of water on high, and I took half a potato and 3 different colored carrots. You can use any kind of carrots that you have. I just had colored carrots around. I also really like the different colors of the carrots, so I'm a big fan of buying different colored veggies and things like that. And once they're all chopped up, you can go ahead and add them to your boiling water. So for this, I am just making sure that they get super soft because I'm going to create a carrot and potato mash. It's another way just to sneak more veggies into your diet. Instead of just having only potatoes, I like mixing extra vegetables in. So after about these 10 minutes, the veggie nuggets should look like this, a little browned on top. And you should be able to see that they're a little stiffer, and they shouldn't be like the batter consistency. At this point, you want to flip them over so you can see what the color looked like originally and what it looks like after they've been all flipped. And then once your carrots and potatoes are softened, you should be able to put a fork through them very easily. That's how you'll know that they're soft enough to be able to mash. You can see here I'm testing putting the fork through. You just want to drain the water from that and then add them back to the pot. And I'm using an immersion blender so that way I can mash it really easily and get everything together. But you can use a potato masher if you wanted. I do think though, if you do decide to use a potato masher because you don't have an immersion blender, then I would suggest maybe boil them a little bit longer than you think. But once it was all mashed together, it looked like that. So I took the veggie nuggets and I put them on top of the mash, and I topped that with the arugula pesto.
So that's all that I have for this week. I hope you're super inspired to go and sneak some veggies into your diet. And if you are, then you should subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and comment below. And don't forget to tune in next week for my video on what I ate while I was away in Costa Rica.